Okay, let's talk about surveys and how much time you should ask for whenever you're writing up a contract. So paragraph 6C is the section of the 1 to 4 family contract that relates to a survey. If you're representing the buyer and you ask for the seller to provide their current survey, you're going to check box number 1 and you're going to fill in the amount of days here. If, like I said, if you're representing the buyer, it's okay to have the amount of days here within the option period. So asking for the seller to provide it within, 3, 5, 7 days, even 10 days, that's perfectly fine. If the sellers have a survey, they should be able to provide this to you, no problem, early on. In addition to the survey, they also have to provide you with this T47. And now what's in bold here is extremely important to take note of. It says, if seller fails to furnish the existing survey or affidavit within the time prescribed, buyer shall obtain a new survey at seller's expense no later than 3 days prior to the closing date. So if the seller is unable to provide their current survey and C1 has been filled out with the amount of days in here, then if they do not provide that survey and T47 within that time prescribed, then they are responsible for paying for a new survey. So if you represent the seller, this is extremely important to notate whenever you're looking at offers. Before you accept an offer, check with your seller and make sure they truly do have a survey that they can provide. Down here, it says if existing survey or affidavit is not acceptable to the title company or buyer's lender, buyer shall obtain a new survey at seller or buyer's expense, no later than 3 days prior to closing. I see this check all the time where it says like buyer, and where somebody will think, okay, well, we check box 1 saying that the seller is going to provide the survey, but then if they can't, then it's going to be a buyer's expense. But that's not what this bold statement says. It says that if they can't provide the survey, the seller has to pay for a new one. If they do provide the survey within the right amount of time, then and it's not acceptable by the title company or the lender, then the buyer will pay for a new expense, or then the seller will pay for a new survey at their expense. So be very careful to make sure that you're reading that correctly before accepting an offer. Now the next one I want to point out is, let's say you're going to have the buyer purchase a new survey. Make sure you put a long amount of days in here, enough time to get a survey after the option period is completed. I would like to see usually about 21 days there, 20 to 21, because then if you have a 10-day option period, you can get out of that option period and then ask the title company to order the survey for you and get it back within the amount of time when it says it's due. If you put 10 days here and you're representing the buyer, you're going to need to order that survey before you even completed the option period to make sure it comes in on time. And if the buyer decides to terminate during the option period and the survey's already been ordered, well, now they have an out-of-pocket expense on a contract that they're not moving forward on. Paragraph 3 is going to be within so many days, then a brand new survey would be ordered at the seller's expense. We don't see that very often. However, sometimes it is checked. And then paragraph D is really important because you want to put what the property is going to be used for, such as residential use, and make sure you put in at least 3 days here, sometimes 5. And this is the amount of days after you receive the title commitment or the survey for them to review it. And if anything needs to be corrected on that survey, let's say a boundary line where they discover there's an easement where they can't put a pool in the backyard and they were going to buy this property because they thought they had room for a pool. Well, if you don't put an amount of days in here, that does not give them an option to review this and be able to terminate the contract and get their earnest money back if that survey can't be rectified, or if the boundary lines can't be rectified. Also, make sure you put a long enough amount of days, like 5 days, for them to review it, and a long enough amount of time to get the survey in, because right here it says buyer is deemed to receive the survey on the date of actual receipt or the date specified in this paragraph, whichever is earlier. So if the survey doesn't come in on time, then technically it's deemed received by this date in the contract. So we might have 5 days here, but if we're over this date, then it's cutting into our amount of days here. So like I said, it's extremely important to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get out of the option period, get the survey ordered, and get it back in within the time here. And as long as you have an amount of days here for them to review it, then it's okay if it's 21 days, 22. You want to make sure it comes in before, and plenty of time before the closing date for them to review it and for it to get through with the lender and the title company, but not short enough that you're cutting into losing days for the survey to come in. If you have any questions, reach out to us at Legacy Transactions, and we would be happy to support your needs.